What if I could broker a deal whereby you would be named one of the managers of BLM Brandon Johnson's new city-owned grocery stores?
Well, I'll do it in a second. What does that mean? You go to dinner at like 7, like you're in,
That's what it means, John.
like you're in Tampa or like Naples for the early bird special with Jello early.
We have to go
at
to bed
4
early in
o'clock.
Naples because we have a tea time. Or 65% reading and math proficiency, that's proficiency. That's not like you're solving the equation on the board in Good Will Hunting. That's proficiency. And that's exactly what's happening. That's why this thing is in a death spiral. You can't outrun the math. You can't outrun it.
John Kass, legendary columnist, formerly of the Chicago Tribune, now johnkassnews.com. Everyone subscribe if you haven't yet. And also the Chicago Way podcast. And Dan Proft, who is morning host of AM 560.
Legendary morning host.
It's been about 20 years. So he is the host of AM 560's Chicago's Morning Answer, and he also has a new podcast called Counterculture. Definitely check it out. And Dan's a longtime friend of Nurture Neighbors. He actually broke the story about that curriculum controversy, which really led to the formation. So maybe only 10 years you'll be legendary.
Right.
So they are going to chat here for about 30 to 40 minutes. Then we will have plenty of time for audience questions. Ted will oversee that portion. And also to note, we are recording this and we will post it on our YouTube channel. So just keep that in mind. And all right, with that, please sit back and enjoy John and Dan, and just join us in welcoming them this evening.
All right, let's just begin. Everybody close your eyes and think about if you lived west of Waukegan Road. And then we can begin this poverty simulation. We're not doing that.
I don't think we're doing that.
All right, John, you fled the state of Illinois. Legendary columnist John Kass fled the state of Illinois for Northwest Indiana.
That's how I became legendary, by fleeing.
How do we get you back? Your family ran a grocery store, is that right?
Yes, we ran supermarkets.
Talk into the microphone so the nice people can hear you.
We ran, can you hear me? Yes. Jeff Carlin, is the sound working? A little closer? A little closer. Okay, I'll right on the teeth, okay? So, yeah, pardon me. So yes, our family did run supermarkets on the south side. When the inspectors from the 14th Ward came to the house, or to the store, and they said, they looked at the steaks and they said, "Nice steaks, Greek," to my dad. And my dad said, "Fill up in Greek he said, "Yemiseta," fill up the shopping bags and say nothing. And that's how I learned all about politics.
So I have a way, I just came up with this idea thinking about this event tonight to make it all right, to bring you back to Chicago.
Yes.
To secure reparations for your family for the lost steaks. What if I could broker a deal whereby you would be named one of the managers of BLM Brandon Johnson's new city-owned grocery stores?
Well, I'll do it in a second. We almost had an accident on the way over here. Betty was looking at her phone. Sorry, Betty. It was the other day. It wasn't today. It was the other day. She was looking at her phone and she said, the Tribune keeps wanting me to come back. And I said, "You mean a subscriber?" And she said, "Yeah, a subscriber." And I said, "Well, tell them you'll do it if they bring me back for $1 million a year." Now, I wouldn't do it for twice that sum.
Because it would be a pay cut. Now.
What price freedom, my friend? What price freedom? But yeah, but it would be interesting to do the Brandon Johnson store. What would you name it, though? I heard on the radio on your show you were trying to figure out some names for it, and you didn't settle on one.
Well, I think
hose and something, whole cakes or something.
No, I think we've settled on some. I mean, my personal favorite was Gimme Dat, and because I mean, you just think about how it rolls off the tongue. So I mean, imagine the conversation with a couple of Chicagoans. So you have, for example, a genderqueer professor of English at the University of Illinois Chicago is talking to her partner who's a non-binary Tribune columnist. And they say, you know, honey, did you put together the takings list? Because I want to go to Gimme Dat and pick that up on the way home. I mean, doesn't that it just seems so Chicago, that conversation, doesn't it?
Well, it's a lot better than the name I came up with, which was Turnips and Rutabagas. Or no, Turnips and Beets Store, which was the only thing that they could sell without destroying.
All right, so that which leads into the larger question. I know, you know, you were lashed to the mast of Triple Threat for the first, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years.
Why did you support
of her administration? Lori Lightfoot is a change agent. Lori Lightfoot is Reagan in a Joe Pesci suit. I mean, you just went on and on and on. And Lori Lightfoot is great. Lori Lightfoot's going to do wonderful things. Lori Lightfoot is going to make this heaven on earth. So where are you, now that that's stipulated, and thank you for that, where are you on BLM Brandon in his first 150 days or so?
Where's Brandon, my bro, as we say?
Yeah, what do you think he's doing? You know, building back better.
I think he's doing a great job, for God's sake. Come on. Police are being beaten in the streets of Chicago, with 2x4s, and he doesn't know anything about it. We had the caravans. What were they called? Caravans for
migrant caravans.
No, Mexican caravans for the Mexican Independence Day.
Yeah.
And that went off without a hitch, right? Because they just shut down the loop or something.
Well, that's every year.
Yeah. So I think he's doing a good job, because I think ultimately the people here want to improve their lives. And if he stays doing what he's doing, they'll improve their lives by leaving, by going to Naples or St. John, Indiana. We've got plenty of cornfields ready for you.
Yeah.
Come on, neighbor. You know, come on.
How do you see BLM Brandon playing out? Is this just an extension of what we've seen, the disintegration of the city, from the little Irish guys to the little Jewish guy to the little Lightfoot to the little, well, he's full size, I guess, to Brandon.
Worse. By the way, did Lenin wear glasses, like horn rimmed glasses? Did he?
And yeah.
Some?
To read.
Because he looks like Lenin. He doesn't resemble Lenin a little bit?
Well, I mean, when he talks, I suppose. By the way, Lenin's was one of the names that was suggested for the grocery store.
That would be good, yeah. 2 for $5. 2 for $5, yeah.
So you're not coming back to Chicago? No way to get you back?
I don't think there's any way I'll come back, but I like to go to the restaurants. I mean, Valari, I like to go. I want to stop at Brundee, because Jeff and I still plan on bringing our girlfriends there. Jeff Carlin, say hello, Jeff. Jeff Carlin's here. And while we're introducing people, I have to introduce, hey Jeff, co-host of the Chicago Way, and as I'm introducing people, I see this beautiful Sicilian woman and the 2 fine young men standing with her. Betty, wave to everybody, Betty and the boys. Peter, where's your brother? He just disappeared? Okay. Anyway, sorry, Dan.
No, it's fine. No, I don't have any family that will associate with me. So it's fine. You can use up that time.
That's why you're single.
Yeah, so many reasons. So BLM. So I mean, look.
Is there any hope?
All of you, enlightened, highly educated North Shore denizens. Do any of you still go to the city? I mean, do you look for opportunities to go to the city? Do you go to the city because you have to for a fundraiser or for a wedding or once in a while to go? I mean, seriously, people that used to go out routinely, how many people still, go to the city routinely to see a show or to go to a restaurant? How many people still do that routinely? A smattering.
Gotta be out of there by 11.
Yeah, right. That's what I hear a lot too. You got to be out of there by 11.
What does that mean? You go to dinner at like 7, like you're.
That's what it means, John.
Like you're in Tampa or like Naples for the early bird special with
Those are your words, not mine.
the Jello. Have the Jello early.
We have to go
at
to bed
4
early
o'clock.
in Naples because we have a tea time. That's a little bit different than having to get out because we're in fear of getting gunned down. Yeah, slightly different. No, but so I mean, the prospects. People want to. Can this be turned around? Can we survive BLM Brandon? Is some sort of unicorn, a moderate Democrat, going to run in 4 years?
Will Mitt Romney come?
Who's going to replace Kim Foxx? And will they enforce the law?
Maybe
all
Mitt
these
Romney.
questions. Come on, give us something.
Maybe Mitt Romney can unretire in Utah
he
and
moves
come
around.
here to Chicago and run for mayor because he's such a manager, right? Can he do that?
You're deflecting.
Look, I don't want to tell people the truth because they can't handle the truth. All right?
Yeah.
You want to handle the truth, you'd listen to Dan every morning.
Yeah.
You read me all the time, but you do. So I don't know what to tell you. Okay, there's no hope. So get on your asses, get in your cars, flee. Flee.
Well, there's some hope in Wilmette. I mean, I guess.
Matt.
I don't know. Well, I mean, so the Stacey Davis Gates moment.
Oh, yeah.
Does that provide an opportunity? Kim Foxx going, people, is there an opportunity to do something that people don't think can happen? I mean, no, let's not just be conventional thinkers. Let's posit hypotheticals, something that could reshuffle the deck, some sort of deus ex machina that could bring about the unexpected. Maybe a pension fund failing.
I was telling Daley to do that a long time ago. No one listened to me.
He didn't know what a deus ex machina event was.
No, he knew what bankruptcy was.
Oh.
And that's what I was telling him. Pull the plug on this thing.
Who's going to replace Kim Foxx?
That now finally we're at like real issues, okay? Kim, does it matter? Does it matter?
Well, that's a question.
Go home.
That's a question.
Go.
Does a question, under the Safety Act, does it really matter if it's Kim Foxx or Clayton Harris or
Kwame.
the names of your Dick Devine, Rich Daley, whoever? It doesn't matter because
Clayton Harris the third, I think.
Well, but that's the question is, so now you've gone so far in instituting what they've been doing in a de facto way with the Safety Act. Does it matter? And that's not to say that there aren't problems with the police and this balance but when you institutionalize something like no cash bail and putting police on their on the defensive, then it doesn't matter if you make a personnel change at Cook County State's Attorney or in the mayor's office.
You would have to get rid of all the judges. You would have to throw them out and start anew, but there's no way to get rid of all of them. You can't do that practically, can you? Can it be done?
No, to impeach every Cook County Circuit Court judge. That'd be a good start, but yeah, obviously that's Herculean. No, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So I'm always looking for what is something that could be exploited if there was the political will, the desire, the courage to exploit it. And to me, like the Stacey Davis Gates thing, her hypocrisy on school choice is somewhat of an opportunity. It's not like the first time we've seen hypocrisy like that from someone like her in her position. The teachers union bosses and politicians, rich politicians that send their kids to private schools and say, the schools your kids are in are good enough for them, which is essentially what Stacey Davis Gates said. But I mean, that's an opportunity, but there's like, that. But we say it, you write about it, I say it on the radio, and then it just sort of it goes into a void. There's no follow-up action. What about 40,000 parents who are on scholarships right now because of the tax credit scholarship program? Who's activating them? This seems to me like this is an opportunity, and you're not doing enough, Kass.
I have to fault all the parents in this room, and all the people who live in Wilmette, and all those who live in Western Springs, our old home. Because similar dynamics are at work in both of them. The managerial class, people want to get along, and no one wants to stand out, and no one wants to call it what it is. So they don't. And then one by one they leave. We've talked about this before. People leave, like, oh, where did the Kasses go? Oh, they went to Indiana. Oh yeah, where will the Hayeses go? I don't know. Wherever they'll go, but wherever it is, they'll go. Everyone leaves. No one stands to fight. I don't know why. I don't know why, Dan. Do you?
I mean, I have some ideas, but I'm not going to be so gauche as to insult our audience. I mean, that's...
Sorry, everyone.
I'm horrified.
I really didn't mean that.
See, this is what happens when you bring a guy who went to Richards High School up to Wilmette. That woman complaining about Mount Carmel and St. Rita is exactly right. Is exactly right.
Dan's upset that I didn't wear my khakis and my construction boots and a sweatshirt. He thought I went to Mount Carmel. I went to Richards.
Yeah.
We don't wear that.
Yeah. John Kass and Dwayne Wade, Richards is finest. That's right. Yeah. Why? So why doesn't it happen? Well, who say who what? Not enough pain. Well, no, but well, first of all, I mean, well, so he's Southside barbarian, and I'm a domestic terrorist because I'm a conservative Catholic. So we're just happy to be here, to be honest with you. No, I mean pain is not going to be visited up here in the sense that pain is visited upon people. I mean, I'm not to overly caricature, but I'm going to. It's not the same way as the pain is going to be visited upon like middle to lower income people that have fewer choices. So that's not why it's happening here. Why don't people step up here? Why don't people step up in Tony areas in the city and in rich suburbs in in the western suburbs where I grew up too, although I was not rich, but is because there's no social cachet to doing so. Is because you're just sort of keeping your head down and plodding ahead, worrying about your thing. It's because, I sort of gave at the office. I donate to this charity. I volunteer for this group, and that's all well and good. I'm not denigrating any of that. But I don't want to pick fights with politicians, and I don't want to pick fights with people in positions of power that can mess with my life or mess with my kids' lives. Why don't people stand up when their schools, and by the way, the schools up here, I mean, New Trier, the Glenbrook schools, I don't know how to break it to you, so I'll just rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, they're terrible. They're terrible schools. I don't know what I mean. I don't know what you think a classical education looks like, but it doesn't look anything like what's happening at New Trier or Glenbrook North or Glenbrook South. I hate to break it to you. Your kid. I mean, right? Well, I'm done with that. I'm done with that portion of the program. So I mean, I get that your kid. They're smart. You care about their education. They're going to go to good schools. They're going to get good jobs, and they're going to be successful. And that's great. Good for them. But why don't people want to take up the fight? Why didn't people want to take up the fight? I'll put myself in the crucible. When Bennett Academy, where I went to school in Lisle, abdicated their central mission objective and allowed somebody who lied on their employment application to stay in a coaching position because she's gay and because they succumbed to political pressure. The issue wasn't whether she was gay or not. The issue is what are the values of the school and what is the consequence of somebody who lies on a job application. That was the issue. But pressure from a few people, like with signs in their yards, like in this neighborhood, May Bennett flip on itself. The appointed school board, because that's a private Catholic school, it's an appointed school board, they essentially took over because the overarching Benedictine monks had lost control of the staff, and so you lost control of the school. And who wanted to stand up and fight that fight at Bennett Academy?
Colonel Supich?
No, I mean, no, but it's a Joliet diocese. It's a Joliet diocese. It's not the Arch. But I mean, anybody in the Joliet diocese? No. Alumni other than me and a few people? No. Why? Because I want the stat. I went to Bennett. I went to North Trier. It's a status. Oh gosh, you must be smart. Oh, that's a great school. Oh, wonderful. And then where did you go to college? You're so fascinating. And nobody wants to be saying, you know, oh really? Because who's willing to say, you went to Bennett? What the hell's going on at Bennett? You guys just abdicated your Catholic in name only now. That Catholic, just like at Loyola and Wilmette, as Phil Purcell said when he stopped giving to Loyola Academy when they went full Marxist.
That was a great.
As he said, the Catholicism is ornamentation now. It's not a Catholic school. It's ornamentation. It's part of your marketing, and that's what Bennett is now. My home school or my alma mater. And so, like New Trier, like you think New Trier is the New Trier that Charlton Heston and Aunt Margaret went to? I mean, are you kidding? It's not even the New Trier that David Schwimmer went to. So, I mean, let's just get real here about what's happening in K-12 education. And Ted Dabrowski and WirePoint can give you all the data. Since everybody's a man and woman of science and data, look at the data. Look at what the reading at grade level is at the quote-unquote best government schools in the region. The Hinsdale Centrals and the New Triers and the Glenbrooks and so on and so forth. I mean, you're happy at 70% or 65% reading and math proficiency? That's proficiency. That's not like you're solving the equation on the board at Goodwill Hunting. That's proficiency. Proficiency. Is that what you expect out of these great schools that are living off reputations that no longer reflect who and what they are? You just expect them to be proficient? I hope my kid grows up to be mediocre. Who says that? That's what's happening. And nobody will fight for it because, hey, that's a good school. We have this reputation. I laid anchor in this community, and that has to mean something. And I get the pressures. I mean, the pressures are real, and they make some sense, and it's rational to process all this and say, we made this huge investment. I can't bring myself to believe what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. I can't do it, but you have to do it.
I don't understand the huge investment thing. Because if the kids if just a few are proficient, why are the property values not suffering?
Yeah.
They are suffering because of property taxes. But everybody believes this. This entire state is predicated on believing beautiful lies. City of Chicago is, the North Shore is, this entire Chicagoland region is predicated on believing beautiful lies.
You should listen to John Kass because he just said that the property values up here, if you want to sell your house, they're very high.
Yeah.
Even though the taxes are high. So that's a good question, and I'd like you to answer it.
Yeah, well,
you guys.
I've only been talking.
Please, Dan.
I've only been talking about property values for 30 years. To the extent that you're having a slight bump right now because of still the fallout from COVID of people who fled the city like it's on fire, because it is, and they're moving to the suburbs, or young families now especially saying we have to get out earlier than we thought before our kids go to school, so they're moving to places like Elmhurst and places like Evanston and Wilmette and so on and so forth. But if you look at the actual numbers, if you look at what you think you can sell your house for today, and then you adjust that for inflation as from when you bought it, and you build in the negative multiplier effect of property taxes, and then everything else that you put into it, I mean, there's not winners here. There are no winners. There are no winners. It's just a question of how much you're going to lose. I sold my condo in Streeterville last year. I got nominally a little bit more than I paid for it 15 years earlier. And by the way, in the city of Chicago, we have a lot lower property taxes as a percentage of a home value than do a lot of suburbs because, in Cook County, commercial subsidizes residential, unlike the collar counties. And in Chicago, you have a commercial base that you don't have in most suburbs, except for, maybe like Oak Brook and DuPage because of the mall. But those are outliers. Those are one-offs.
But all that will soon come to an end when
you can't outrun the math. You can't outrun it.
When the commercial leases begin to expire downtown and they aren't renewed on the big buildings, the commercial buildings, they're not renewed. Like the mom and pop stores are going to close. No one's open down there. No one's going downtown. You can't go to Valari like for lunch. You can only go for dinner because everything is screwed up down there, as you know. So all those leases will come due and all that pain will be shifted onto the backs of the homeowners in the city. Northwest side, southwest side.
Sort of.
It's just going to take. It's going to take a couple of years.
It's more complicated than that because what they're going to do is because you've got government backing all these crazy gambits of the city where they're going to take. They want to retrofit commercial spaces in the financial district to be low-income housing. This is the lunacy that you're. I'm not being sarcastic. That's a proposal. That's in proposal form at this point.
That's all they have.
And it's not just in Chicago, it's in all major metropolises because you have the same ideology that's just attached to different names in San Francisco and LA, in New York, in Chicago, in Atlanta, and every other city over 250,000 people in this country. So, you're going to have all sorts of externalities created, but here's the net of it. That big cities are going to be ghettoized. And the problems in big cities will be socialized to the suburbs. Don't you see what Daley, as sort of like not terribly bright as he was, they understood one thing. They understood that make Chicago Chicagoland. He's the one who started that suburban mayor's caucus. Why? Because he gave a rat's ass about Country Club Hills or Addison? No, because you socialize the city's problems to all of the suburbs. This is the engine. Everybody likes to come to the city. We have this, we have that. You're going to come to the city. We all sing from the hymnal of the greatest city on earth. And it was at one time in a kind of sort of way for fun and stuff. In the 90s and early part of this century, I'd say 80s, early part of this century. But what they were doing the whole time is spreading out the costs of terrible public policy in the city that had consequences outside of the city boundaries. Professional criminal street gangs and theft rings and other black market operators, they don't respect corporate boundaries. We can't do that. This is Oak Park technically. No, that's not how it works. And so that's exactly what they've done. And so, and now when you have City of Chicago crime bosses in charge of the state of Illinois, which we've had for the last 50 years, and now that's been accelerated by Jelly Belly and his trust fund, then you're going to socialize the problems of Northeastern Illinois to the entire state. And that's exactly what's happening. That's why this thing is in a death spiral.
So again,
should we have another drink?
Indiana's nice.
I'm just telling you, it's like one of these things you just need to recognize the scope of the problem if you want to talk about solutions that are proportional. And we want to talk about elect somebody to elect some state senator in Elmhurst. I don't care. I don't care about some state. I care if somebody's interesting and they're going to be a leader and they're going to be essentially a counter-revolutionary, which is what we need in the state, and they're going to stoke a revolt of the otherwise dormant, sensible people. But if you're not talking about that, then you're not talking about any sort of pathway to something that is proportional to what is being done in real time. That's what I'm saying.
And because that's not happening is why I would say, get in your car,
Right now. Just
Drive south.
leave right now.
Right.
Don't wait. Don't wait for. Don't wait.
Crown Point,
Cancel
Indiana's a
question
nice
today.
town.
No. But here's the other thing too. Like I go. So let me talk about opportunities. Let me just talk about opportunities for a
Please.
second. So, the two opportunities in the last year, the Safety Act and the Tax Credit Scholarship Program. These were opportunities for center-right people to coalition build with impacted in the sense of crime, or benefited in the sense of people are benefiting in the sense of scholarships, so that you could change public policy, or at least begin to win arguments. The way you win elections is not by, we win an election somehow, and then we win the argument after the fact. We win you win arguments, you make arguments, you win arguments, and then you win elections. So we won the arguments on the Safety Act, and we won the argument on school choice. We've still won them. And we lose elections. How's that? They have losing arguments, but they win.
Well, they get people to vote.
Not back ballots.
It's not cheating, and it's not like a litmus test on a particular race. It's that we didn't essentially attach the winning arguments to our brand, our candidates, and we also didn't bring in non-traditional surrogates to be the front people to message, to bring in non-traditional constituent partners on those issues. So I say again, just to use this as an example, 40,000 families who benefit from the tax credit scholarship, mostly lower income, disproportionately minority, and how many of them did you ever see?
Why aren't they storming the barricades now?
Why isn't somebody driving them to the barricades?
They have to be taken to the barricade.
Well, I mean, look.
I'll take you here. Now you can stand here.
That's what the competition does. Somebody said that. That's exactly right.
Organize and be like the Chicago Democrat
Well, also we know who they are. How about we don't have to do that much. They're pretty motivated. They were motivated enough to get their kids on scholarship and get them to a better school. They're paying attention. All you have to do is say, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, this tax credit scholarship is going to go away, and that means it's going to go away for your kid. Can we bring you to this thing? I mean, I tried, I know, and people ostensibly on our side, on my side, if you're a proponent of school choice, they didn't want to do it. So I mean, it's not like there haven't been opportunities present, and there aren't opportunities present to begin the slow turn away from the abyss. But when they present themselves, we have, I don't know why exactly, even people that are sort of tasked with doing this professionally have turned away from the opportunity to lead this revolt on an argument where we have a majority support in the state across every demographic.
So
Yeah,
audience participation's been really high, so I think we're gonna move into the Q&A.
Okay, good.
Ted and Jeff, if you wanna kind of.
Don't ask any mean questions or I'm going to curl up and cry.
Over here.
All right, come over here, guys. Question.
How do you get people to vote and bring somebody to vote? In other words, how do you turn people out, keep them engaged, motivate them, so on and so forth? How do we do better at GOTV, essentially?
When the Republican Party had Bob Shalander as his national committeeman, I knew they were full of shit. And I knew that they would go nowhere. There was a good candidate sitting to my left who ran for governor. He didn't have traction, but there were candidates to drive people to the polls. There weren't enough of them, and there is no organization. I don't know how you do it, Dan. You know how to do it. Is there a Republican Party anymore? And is the Republican Party worth saving? I was cured.
No.
I was cured of being a Republican back when Bush went into Iraq, and the soldier came to see me and have a cup of coffee with me and tell me that everything that Bush was doing was wrong. I haven't been a Republican since then. But is there a place for the Republican Party to rebuild?
I don't. I mean, I don't. The Republican Party in this state, I don't know that it's particularly interested in doing anything particularly interesting. So, to me, but that doesn't matter. That's not really the question to me. Is like I'm not in the business of saving a party from itself, and I don't think you should be either. I think you should be in the business of peer-to-peer projects around issues of mutual concern and how do we advance the flag on those issues. So for example, it's a peer-to-peer operation to make a move on school choice or make a move on eliminating the state income tax. It could be any particular issue. It's peer-to-peer, and even more after COVID, people have less respect and confer less authority to the so-called experts on these issues than they do people within their peer circle. So it's a peer-to-peer project to say, I'm going to get together with John and Beth and Corey and somebody else, and we're going to support these group of candidates because they're proponents of school choice and restoring the income tax credit scholarship program. I don't care who they are, and I don't care what their party is. I think that's the way that you do it to energize people, in much the way whether you like them or don't like them, the way that Trump did in 2016. You have to stoke the revolt against entrenched interests. That's what he did. And the other thing that needs to be done, I mean, just as a practical matter, is you have to get people that come to the table on one issue or for one candidate to get beyond that one issue and beyond that one candidate to stay engaged. So for example, it was not helpful that in the 300,000 people who voted for Trump in 2020 did not turn out, I'm talking about in Illinois, did not turn out in 2022. That is unhelpful. That's unacceptable. That is not defensible. And it would be the same thing I would say about any other candidate or any other particular issue. So those are the kind of conversations, but you have to have those conversations through your peer-to-peer networks. You can't outsource it to a radio talk show host or a columnist or a politician.
Correct.
So that's what everybody can do all the time. The other thing that's important about the peer-to-peer and it being issue-based is you get upstream of the elections. If you're having these conversations all the time, you're winning these substantive policy arguments that then attach to candidates, rather than waiting for candidates and then you attach policy arguments to them and they're imperfect messengers, they're sort of a mess, or they're off-putting for whatever reason, and then you lose the issue agreement because you have a disagreement on the personality of the candidate. Get upstream of elections and candidates to win the arguments on the merits, particularly on cultural issues, and then attach the candidates and have that discussion when the elections come around.
The family.
Next question.
John, you had on your Twitter feed, this is a great turnout, by the way, so but you had on your Twitter feed a question to ask you about the Tribune, but I couldn't remember what it was.
I said if you asked me about the Tribune, I might answer it.
How about the Tribune?
Who is mean to you at the Tribune?
I don't think anyone as mean to me as Dan is to me.
Yes.
He's mean.
Yeah, I know. Mean-spirited.
But if you do have a question about the Tribune, look.
What happened at the Tribune? Come on, people want to know.
Thank you.
There were, sometimes I go after them. I mentioned it in a column or two or three. And some former Tribsters say, why are you doing this? Why do you keep going after them? And my answer is simply, they wanted to kill me. And I have not forgotten, and I won't forget. Jeff Carlin was there for me. Dan Proft was there for me. My kids and my wife, Betty, were there for me. Tom Bevan, who's a neighbor of yours, you should have him in your group, was there for me. But they wanted to destroy my reputation and my name. And I'll be damned if I'm ever going to forget it. Actually, I'm not going to forget it. I'm just going to enjoy jumping on that carcass until it disappears. I really can't emphasize this enough. When they called me an anti-Semite, and Dan called me up, are you okay? And I said, yeah, but I was like, kind of down. And did it have an effect on my health? I think so. Did it have an effect on my outlook on life? Yeah, I think so. But I got through it with Betty's help and the boys and friends that I mentioned, and God's help, and yours. All of you who stood up and supported me. And so whatever happens with that newspaper, I'm sorry, it used to be a great paper. It was an important institution. I'm sorry that it's no longer that, but we all move on, and I moved on. So the only answer to that question is subscribe to John Kass News. Woo! Thank you. Yes, Jeff.
Pete Donahue from Wilmette wants to know, how do we alter the bias in the media, John?
Okay, I'd like Mr. Media himself, the king of all media, to answer this, but I would say don't participate with what they want you to participate in. Fox News elevates Nikki Haley, the neocon war master, and starts talking about how wonderful she is. Nikki Haley, oh, she's wonderful. Fox News, over and over and over again. I'm not buying it. And I'm not going to play in that sandbox. I want media that I like, so I go and look for it. And I go to Dan Proft's show, I go to the podcast too, and I'm going to go to his podcast on what? Not Upstream Ideas, what's it called again?
Counterculture.
Counterculture. Because you had Victor Davis Hanson.
I did.
I mean, how many people have Victor Davis Hanson? I know my boys, sons were saying, Dad, why don't you ask Victor Davis Hanson? They're always on me to get bigger guests. And I said, well, maybe I'll ask Dan if it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a national question?
Any question you want.
Okay,
This is not the Chicago Tribune editorial board.
Since we're already banned Dan Proft, tell us, both of you, John, who's going to be the nominees in the general election? I mean, is it going to be Biden or no?
Repeat the question.
Who are the nominees going to be for, who are the presidential nominees going to be for the two parties?
Out of the, for Republicans, who would you guys pick?
Come on, Dan.
Go ahead, John.
No, you first. You first, Dan.
So I think it's more likely than not that Trump is the nominee. I really don't see a pathway for anybody unless Biden gets out of the race. And I see that being less and less likely with each passing day. And all the incentives are for Biden to stay in because he needs to insulate himself from all of the alleged criminality he and his family have been engaged in. And the best way to do that is to stay in power, not to be out of power, as Trump has found out. So I think that's more likely than not. I mean, I know there's this sort of like, everybody likes playing fantasy, politics. It's like, so Biden's going to get out, and then the Newsom-DeSantis debate next month is a preview of what the, even if Biden gets out, I'm saying that shakes up the race and it's a possibility. But I'm not saying that it necessarily changes the trajectory of the Republican Party's nomination, because nobody, whatever your criticism of Trump, nobody perceives him in the way they perceive Biden as not sort of competent, as not sentient and sapient and with us. So that criticism isn't there. And so then it just becomes like a matter of principle. Even if you think this guy is uber competent, we shouldn't have anybody in the Oval Office over 80. I just don't think that's what's going to close a 40 or 50 point gap, or even a 25 point gap in the early states. I just don't see that. And by the way, I think people are vastly underestimating what I said about Trump in 2016. And the dynamic hasn't changed much. I repeat this all the time. The formulation that VDH, Victor Davis Hanson, gave for Trump's candidacy as value proposition in 2016, it was the best one-sentence summary I've heard, not unsurprisingly from Victor Davis Hanson. Basically, Trump's candidacy was this. All those people on Wall Street, in DC, in the press, in Hollywood, in media, I know them all. They're even worse than you think. And and I'm coming after them. And now he has a corollary to bolt on that. All that description was fulfilled by how they behaved for the last 7 years. Now he has the bolt-on corollary of, they're not coming for me, they're coming for you through me. And we have Scott Smith in Loudoun County, and we have the pastor in rural Pennsylvania, and we have the FBI memos, and we have what's transpired to even Trump over the last 4 months. And I just don't think, I think the revolt that started in 2016, I don't think that dynamic has changed any, really. I think it's intensified. And so the idea that you're going to peel off that majority support that Trump enjoys as all of these prosecutions are rolling forward and the machinations of them, I don't think that's going to be easy at all. So I think Trump is much more likely than not to be your nominee, and I think Biden is slightly more likely than not to be their nominee.
Thank you. I would say only that Trump is the fellow I trust to be, and trusting politicians is a dangerous proposition. But that said, the only one out there, because you have to understand, I don't think the media understands what most of us feel. And the elites don't understand it, they don't want to understand it. They hate you. They despise you. They don't know any better. They think you're not worthy of consideration, and they will destroy you if they can. Now, he's a devil. I think we should be careful about making a pact with the devil, right? But when elected, I want the candidate against Biden or that whole state to take a 2x4 and kick their ass. That's what I want. I want them.
Kick their ass.
Yeah, I do. Maybe you've never done it and you don't know how it feels, but it feels pretty goddamn good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also too, the stakes. I got to tell you, so Thomas Sowell, who just turned 93, if you're not familiar with his work, you should be.
Brilliant.
He's got a new book out called Social Justice Fallacies. And he did a interview with Peter Robinson on Uncommon Knowledge that just posted this weekend. And you should all check it out. But
Mark Levin last night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sure. Check him out on Levin. But in the Peter Robinson interview, this was a great exchange, just like a record screecher. So the book is called Social Justice Fallacies, where he debunks all the fallacies of the social justice mob, Marxists. And Peter Robinson asks, if the social justice crowd got their entire agenda instituted into law and culture, what would be happening in America? And Thomas Sowell said, people would be killing each other. And Peter Robinson's like, okay, how about some intermediate steps? No, but that's such a tell because we've seen this before. I mean, that's who these people are. That's what the implications of their policy agenda is. We're seeing it play out. And it sounds like ridiculous, except when somebody like Thomas Sowell says it. It doesn't sound so ridiculous. But think about it. I mean, think about examples that we all know. Think about apartheid in South Africa and whites killing blacks because they were black. Think about what's going on in South Africa now, where blacks are killing white farmers because they're white farmers and they want the land. You don't think that can happen? You don't think that you can drive people into violence when you entitle or encumber them based on identitarian characteristics, which is exactly what is happening. They're slow walking it, but that's exactly what this is, and this is exactly where it leads, and that's exactly what Thomas Sowell was saying. Really? So that's what's at stake when somebody argues about Trump's Twitter feed or this or that. I mean, he's mean, he's off-putting, he's boorish, he's all those things and more. And if it comes down to Trump being the blunt instrument we need to stop those Marxists from bringing us to that point that Thomas Sowell is describing, then that's the path of least, or that's the blunt instrument we need, at least in the short term, while we try to figure out the medium and the long term.
Agree. I was born in 1956. 10 years after the end of the Greek Civil War, after the beginning of the Greek Civil War. My father fought in that war. And when the communists took over, they shot the teachers first. The teachers were of the left and generally predisposed. You know, Dan tells this story about the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks. You've heard these stories, right? The Mensheviks were like the liberals, and the Bolsheviks were, well, that's what they were. And the liberals were overwhelmed, devoured, destroyed by the Bolsheviks. I see that happening now. You look in public policy, there are actual debates in California over who takes precedent over a child to castrate that child. That's being discussed now, publicly discussed. Are you kidding?
It's being litigated.
Litigated, yeah. So I think that we're coming to that point, and the managers of culture have known this for a while, and they've participated in building a war. And I hope they're happy when they get it.
Let me just say something too. So this is federal, state, local. The Democrat Socialist Party, you think they're like some good Democrats on the North Shore, like these state reps and state senators? You think they're not so bad?
I know them. They can't be bad.
The Democrat Socialist Party in 2023 America, whether it's in Illinois, on the North Shore, in DC, is a revolutionary party. And I don't care if there's some in that party that don't want to go along with it or are useful idiots for the revolutionaries, but they're going to be taken or they're going to be taken out. That's where the party is. Period, full stop. And if you don't understand that, then you don't understand the threat that we face.
Got a question over here?
Yes?
How does the swamp get drained? Is that sort of the question? So what do we do if Trump gets in power or whoever? If the Republican got in power, so okay, so then how are we going to drain the swamp? Because we're not going to organize Pinochet-style death squads. She doesn't want that, apparently. I'm not saying that's representative, but I'm just saying she doesn't want that. No, of course, she's right, obviously. So this is, yes, of course, and it's not going to go as fast as, I mean, again, if everything went well and we were in this happy position of having to contemplate the strategy associated with that. But I mean, right, so it's not going to go as fast as you want. There are going to be people that fold. There's going to be all of the usual disappointments. But the first act is the act of accountability, to say you are being removed from office for crimes, effectively crimes against the Constitution, for operating in a way that is anathema to a free society. And we want everybody to understand this is why we remove these people from their positions, removed electorally. And then, you know, I mean, the president has a lot of appointment powers.
And a walk of shame wouldn't hurt either.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's a fair question. It's a good one, but I think the first thing that we should be focused on is trying to persuade people. If you don't hold people accountable for bad acts that they commit in their professional responsibilities to their constituents, then all the rest of the discussion is irrelevant. And we aren't doing that. We haven't done that. We didn't do that with COVID. We haven't done that with the excesses of the Justice Department and the FBI and the CIA and the people that professionally lie to us. And you need to essentially draw some clear lines of demarcation and say, these are people that I'm firing because they were just unrepentant liars They told the American people a bunch of things that weren't true. They abrogated their duties. They behaved unethically. Like, lay out the case. Make the argument.
But
Present people for public examination.
You think Trump can do that?
No, not well. But I think he can put people around him that can.
Neither can the state back.
Who's Kevin McCarthy? Yeah. I mean, again, like, I get all of the failings of all of these, failed human beings, as we all are. I'm just saying that let's just focus on what the standard of analysis is, the first principle is, and the first principle is accountability. You know what has happened. You have experienced what's happened. I'm talking the collective you.
Right.
So let the first thing we have to do before we can have a discussion about anything else is hold people to account for what we both agreed that they did that ran afoul of social mores or constitutional guarantees. Let's just start there. Let's start there. What?
Why is the GOP that has all the power in Congress?
It doesn't have all the power in Congress. It has one chamber. It has one. It doesn't have all the power in Congress. It has one chamber.
I have a question.
Pelosi would have done it in freaking June.
Yeah,
I think you should go and ask Mitch McConnell why.
Oh,
That's right.
Let's walk and run before we, sprint ahead of ourselves. And I think you just need to keep the focus on this accountability piece. I think, you can only tackle so many things at the same time. You can only fight on so many fronts. And so the front that I would suggest that we fight on is a front of parental authority and personal responsibility and public accountability. I mean, those to me seem to be like where we've already won the arguments. Now we just need to attach them to ourselves.
So, in my experience, if I actually get a conversation started and people think I've grown 3 heads, that I'm crazy, and you get that going, the response a lot of times is, well, it doesn't matter anyway because of the cheating at the polls. Can you comment on the cheating? It's like, I actually called Durbin's office to tell him how I felt about something, and this kid on the phone is telling me I shouldn't think that way. And I said, your job is to tell your boss what I think. You work for me, and this kid didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
Durbin's office.
That's not their policy.
No.
Yeah.
So my point is, once you get it going, if the apathy is, it doesn't matter if I vote or not because they're going to cheat anyway.
So you do all this and you try to have conversation and people say, I agree with you, but it doesn't matter because they're just going to steal it, and so I give up. What do you do, right? What do you say to them?
Then we've got to get the media to start to be honest.
That is a fool's errand.
Never
Forget
happened.
that. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I mean, no. We've got to focus on the assets that we have and understand the assets that we don't. You know what asset we have? This is a guy I'm riffing from VDH who explained this in my podcast, Counterculture. The asset we have, so we don't have more money than they do. We don't. Despite the caricature, we don't. We don't have more campaign infrastructure than they do. But we do have more people than they do. We have more people who play by the rules upon which this country was founded, and everybody who understands that phrase, people playing by the rules. Everybody gets that sort of innately. That is a majority of this country. So that's what we have. Now the question is, what do we do with it? And so that would be my response to the person that says, oh, they're going to steal it anyway. First of all, that's not true. It's just not true. Are there is there election skullduggery that happens? Can I explain Maricopa County in 2022? No. I mean, I can't explain it in terms of like, oh yes, that was flawless. No, of course not. Just like Cook County elections, and I was part of the Tony Pareca storming of the Cook County Castle in 2006 against Todd Stroger. So I mean, I'm a practitioner too, I've been there. But it's not true, it is a cop-out, and you can't let people who are otherwise the people who play by the rules use that cop-out as a crutch to say it doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. They're counting on you to say it doesn't matter because they know they are outnumbered if we convince people who play by the rules that they matter.
I would say think long and hard about anyone telling you that. When they tell you that oh, it doesn't matter because we're going to lose and they have the votes and we don't have the vote. Think about why they're telling you that. Think about why they're telling you anything. It's to demoralize you.
Tell them to read Whittaker Chambers.
Or I would say read the Bible. Because
sure, that too.
The Bible tells us that I don't know where in the Bible it is, but I do know that the evil one, his only purpose is to demoralize you. Demoralize. That's what they want to do. They want you to be demoralized so they can take it. And the question is, are you going to be demoralized enough to lower your head and let them take it, or are you going to fight for your country?
Like during the lockdown.
So the question, the point was, at the grassroots level, church, family, church, these are the two bulwarks against the state. What happens when your priest or reverend or rabbi is promoting the left and promoting abortion or staying silent, otherwise essentially being a social justice?
Because the church does not support abortion.
I understand.
Feel what they want to feel, but
It's real simple. You know what people understand? They understand that tray that passes in the church. They understand they don't want to hear, pastor, you hear? They don't want to hear loud sounds. They want to hear quiet. They want to hear silence. They want to hear 20s and 50s.
No coins.
Don't give to the first.
Bingo.
So you said this is at OLPH.
Well, no, it's everywhere.
Well, I know, but you're at OLPH.
I was attending that day.
Okay.
So don't give to your church.
Well, yeah, okay. Well,
You can't give to the archdiocese. You cannot give it
right.
to the offertory.
Tell the archdiocese that you're going to call the Greeks and you're bringing the check over there and see how quick they respond.
Well,
yeah,
no, I get it. I mean, so the accountability piece applies to your church, applies to your school, applies to all of the institutions that are civilizational in disposition. I mean, all of the core cultural and civic institutions, they need to be held accountable. And if people don't hold their institutions accountable, then you will see them go off the rails. And this is why, again, I mean, you see the other side. The other side is a 24/7 constant content producing machine. And we are not. We are not. So whoever's at Old PH that should be challenging that priest at every mass or after every mass and organizing pro-lifers at that church. I mean, I don't go to a church like that, so I don't have a problem. But that you self-select, and if you're in a place where you can challenge somebody who is off the rails, then challenge that person who's off the rails and get a bunch of other people to do the same. You have got to speak up. We're not in the Nixon era where the silent majority is good enough and we're going to show up on election day and Nixon's going to win 49 states. That is not this era. The silent majority cannot be silent at this time. Politics has moved so far ahead. It has infected every corner of civil society in a way that was not the case 50 years ago.
I want to take one last question here. Question here.
Hi, John. I had a question.
All right, well, we'll do him too.
I heard earlier in the conversation that you had stopped working for the Chicago Tribune. And I understand that. I do believe that you said that they had asked you to come back.
No, they did not ask. They asked my wife to come back as a subscriber, and I said, tell them you'll come back when you'll subscribe when they bring that John Kass guy back, as long as you pay him $1 million to come back. And even at that price, rather than risk the animosity of Dan Proft, I would say no.
Well, I was just basically saying that if Chicago Tribune is willing to give you one last time to voice your opinion, and challenge them on that. I think
They're not.
They're not, and I don't care to.
I know you don't care to.
Although I'm thinking about taking an ad.
Something that all of us after the Republican Party could work with, and that's all.
Thank you.
No, I actually.
Ted and Dan think I should take an ad out in the Chicago Tribune. Miss me? And maybe we'll do that. You like that idea, Jeff?
But one thing on that, I don't think John Kass should go back for any amount of money, and
Yeah, I won't.
I know you won't, because JohnKassNews.com is more important than the Tribune.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, just in one sense, we have to stop focusing on why is ABC7 not being nice to us?
Yeah.
Why does the AFL-CIO
Screw
Times
that.
not cover us?
Right.
We have to build our own castles. That's what John Kass News is.
Thank you. And wire points. Yes, sir.
I want to come back to the cities and talk about getting the business community involved in our cities again. Chicago, as we know, is a disaster. And in the 70s, Tom Brooker, the chairman of Montgomery Ward, decided that the business community was going to do something. He went to Mayor Daley and said, we're taking over. And the business community took over with the Chicago Tribune and turned the city around. In Minneapolis, the Dayton, who started Target, did the same thing. In Kansas City, the Hall brothers, the Walmart cards did the same thing. The business community was front and center, and we need to find ways to get business leaders back involved. And I know it can be done because I could give examples of those three cities, what the business community did, providing leadership to turn those cities around.
The point he made was about business leadership to turn cities around. That has happened in the past and needs to happen again. Well, I'd love for that to be true. I think the business community in Chicago, like the Economic Club of Chicago, the Civic Federation types, the C-suiters, I think they're an absolute disgrace, to be quite honest with you. I think, and you agree. I think they have been rent seekers and cowards. I think they have been completely asleep at the switch. I think they like to dip their toe in the water for the accolades, but not do any of the heavy lifting it takes to actually recruit and provide sort of unanimity of support around competent mayoral candidates or candidates for Cook County State's Attorney and up and down. I think they've been split, and I think they've been venal, and I think they're a bunch of political hacks and cake eaters, frankly.
Cake eaters.
And I'll tell you what, it doesn't have to be that way, and I'd be happy for somebody to step up and prove me wrong, but that's who it is right now. And the model for this, actually, like if you want to look at a model, Julius Rosenwald, that's what we need civic leaders to do. Julius Rosenwald, who partnered with Booker T. Washington to build schools in the South for black kids during segregation and change the trajectory of the education of black children and the prosperity of black families in so doing. Julius Rosenwald was the CEO of Sears Roebuck at the time, Booker T. Washington, everybody knows who that was, and they partnered on that. Rather than even politicians at this stage, if I would see any civic leadership, any CEO leadership in the direction of something like the Rosenwald schools or something else in terms of network building among people who are in separate networks right now, both kids and adults, then I would cheerlead that. But we don't have anything like that going on right now.
We're all going down to Naples for.
So, last comment?
Last comment of the evening. I'll stick around and answer. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll stick around and answer questions. I agree with Dan 100% on the Julius Rosenwald schools. Where's Julius Rosenwald in business? Where is he? I keep asking, where's Woodward and Bernstein?
Right.
But they're gone too. Cuckoo, whatever. Mrs. Robinson, they're all gone. But I'll stick around to answer questions. Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a question just on that. What would be the new paradigm
to bring back investigative journalism.
All right.
Pay for it.
Right.
Subscribe to JohnKassNews.com.
Can we
Thank
get
you.
both of you to say something nice about Illinois? You know,
We want one.
One thing. One. Why do you love it in Illinois?
We love you guys.
Wait, John,
Why do we love Illinois? All right, well, it's not because of the Bears. They suck. The fire sucks even worse because no one even knows what the fire is. We're season ticket holders. Boys, does anyone care about the fire? No, not even the boys. The Blackhawks, I don't know, maybe a little bit now.
Look at the good things.
One good thing.
Good thing.
I'm thinking about, yeah, okay, food. But you need to go to Illinois because I live in a food desert. It's called Indiana, where all they do, they fry everything. I was talking to a guy and said, can you make me some veal? I know. Can you make me some spaghetti olio? And he's like, what's that? I go, spaghetti and garlic, okay? Just put he goes, how much do I put in? What do I said, forget about it. Forget about it.
One good thing is that the United States Soccer Federation is leaving Chicago for Atlanta. That's good. I like that. That's positive. No, Chicagoland. It's really ironic because 3 of the worst states in the country have some of the best golf: Illinois, New York, and California. Chicago has great golf.
Excellent.
I'll give you that.
Thank you guys.
And on that.
So Chicago, and specifically Wilmette, also has very excellent steaks. And so we have cowboy steaks from Al's Meat Market for each of you.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Cooler.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just everybody, please join me again. Thank you, Ed Ryan. And thank you, John and Dan. Really excellent.
Thank you.